Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Create Centre webinar. My name's Robin Ewing, and with Michael Anderson, I co-direct the Create Centre, Creativity in Research, Engaging the Arts, Transforming Education, Health and Wellbeing.
Nailed
Before Tash introduces Jason, and I know that we're in for a treat tonight, I just want to acknowledge our First Nations Australians, our oldest continuous culture in the world, our original storytellers, and also pay respect and acknowledge that the arts and story are at the centre of First Nations cultures all over the world, and we have so much to learn from their ways of doing, being, knowing, and becoming. If you're interested in joining the Create Centre and you haven't yet, I'm sure that Anna will put the link into the chat. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Natasha Beaumont, member of our Create team, who's going to introduce Jason. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm joining you from Darug country. If you'd like to put in the chat where you're coming from, that would be wonderful. Thanks, Tash.
Great. Thanks, Robin. Coming to you from Gadigal land and very, very excited to introduce to you Dr. Jason Goopy, a lecturer in music education at Edith Cowan University. Jason coordinates secondary school and instrumental music education within the School of Education. His research focuses on how music education transforms students' lives by working at the nexus between music, education, and psychology. This is so exciting, Jason. He uses arts-based and mixed methods in his own research. He has a monograph you might be interested to read, Teenage Boys, Musical Identities and Music Education, available through Routledge. And he also works a lot in an approach we were just talking about before you all logged on, and I forgot the right way to pronounce it, Jason, the Hungarian Kodai approach to
correct. Well done.
Great. Which is from what I understand, is a very intuitive, embodied way of introducing young people to music and focuses a lot on attuning children's ears, which has so many implications for literacy and language development. It's very exciting to me. I need to learn more about this stuff. I can't wait to hear what you have to tell us tonight. Over to you, Jason.
Thanks so much, Natasha. And I'll just share my screen at this time. It's an honour to be here this evening presenting at the Create Centre at the University of Sydney. And it's great to see familiar faces and meet some new ones as well. As mentioned, my name is Dr. Jason Goopy, and I'm a lecturer in music education from Edith Cowan University in Perth, Western Australia. And in this evening's presentation, I'm really looking forward to sharing some of my work with you, titled Music as a Cross-Curricular Priority. And it's a title that I hope that has got your attention, which is probably why you're here having a listen. And we're going to look at a feature case study of a school that is doing exactly that, and some of the characteristics of that program, and then the impacts this has on young people. I too would like to begin by acknowledging the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first musicians, storytellers, and educators of this land, and I pay my respects to elders past and present, and those here today as well. And as mentioned before, if you haven't had a chance already, I would encourage you to drop in the chat the lands on which you are coming to us from today. I wish to acknowledge that I live and work on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation in Perth. This photo here on screen is one that I took myself actually in Perth. It's a beautiful sunset, and if you have had a chance to come over to the West Coast, this is one of the great things you can experience over here. A lot of my presentation this evening is framed in well-being, and one of the driving interests in well-being is the mental health crisis that we face worldwide. We know that half of the population is expected to face a mental illness during their lifetime, and mental illness affects 1 in 7 children annually in Australia. And it's estimated that 580 children have a diagnosable mental illness condition, and 630,000 young people have mild to moderate mental illness. This is important in this particular case study because students feel less connected at school, attend school less often, and achieve lower academic outcomes. And you'll hear the young people this evening talking about some of the struggles they are dealing with and how music is used as a resource to help get them back on track. We also know that less than half receive professional help, and gaps are not fully closed even for those who are able to access professional support services. And we've seen recently record government investments in mental health and suicide prevention. But I want to take a strengths-based approach, and we're looking at well-being. And why is well-being important? And I think it's worth pointing out that it's number 3 out of the UN sustainability goals, which is ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. UNESCO also advocates for flourishing to be a central aim of education. And I think that's significant. Well-being is now the central aim of education, all educational endeavours. And it's important to note as well that there's actually a lack of consensus on what well-being is. And that's one of the challenges that the field currently is grappling with, this what is well-being? And so with that in mind, I'm going to be looking at a particular frame offered by the United Nations. And they proposed an expanded definition of specifically adolescent well-being, which is adolescents have the support, confidence, and resources to thrive in context of secure and healthy relationships, realizing their full potential and rights. They said that there were 5 interconnected domains. These are good health and optimum nutrition, connectedness, positive values and contribution to society, safety and supportive environment, learning, competence, education, skills and employability, and agency and resilience. And I think what you'll see this evening in this presentation is these characteristics will emerge from this particular case study. How can our schools start to actually really focus on creating environments with these 5 interconnected domains, particularly if, as UNESCO says, well-being and flourishing should be at the heart of all educational endeavours going forward. So part of this, I've also proposed a concept I've called musical flourishing, which aims to promote joyful, meaningful, and ethical ways of living well in, through, with, and including music. And this is something that I'm really passionate about, and it's now forming the basis of my work moving forward. We also know that music plays an incredibly important and essential role in the everyday lives of adolescents. Music is also being noted to be a developmental and protective factor during adolescence. It's something they use to learn and make meaning of the world and grow. A lot of work has been done on young people's listening to music, and it's been found that they use music in 4 ways to support their well-being. This is relationship building, modifying emotions, modifying cognitions, and emotional immersion. And there's lots and lots of research emerging in this field, and I'm just tapping into the surface here. So I would encourage you to do some further reading if you're interested in this field, because it is very fascinating. But what I find interesting as a music educator is that research on making music is only emerging for adolescents, and even less so attention has been given to learning music. And so then I wonder, and I propose that learning music has the opportunity to amplify the life-enhancing benefits that music listening and making can offer our young people. Also, what's emerging in the research is that music's influence on adolescent well-being is context dependent. It really depends on a number of factors that shape the context in terms of the benefits that will come. So often in the past, we've tried to make generalizations about well-being and music across all of adolescents. But really, what we're noticing now is that, no surprises, it's quite context dependent. And so then that's really quite relevant to this case this evening, because it is a particular case. And we're going to explore this case a bit further. Let's also have a listen to what Emily has to say about what music does in her life.
So this represents like real life and how everything's kind of in black and white, very like dark. There's like bricks between people, like it's just like not, I don't know, it's very like boring, very just like it can get very like depressing, like real life. And then this is music.
Wow.
And so it's like that it can bring light to the darker days kind of thing. And it just like, and then on the top, this horrible drawing, it's like the connections that people can make through it. So it's like in the dark day, the music comes, and then brightness between like people, how they can connect through music when before they were just like by themselves kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, now I don't actually hear any sound at the moment, so I assume that you are all hearing the sound. That's great. Okay, so this particular study that I'm sharing with you this evening is driven by this overarching research question. What are the characteristics of this program that support adolescent musical flourishing? And I want to talk about Australian Music School, or AMS. So this study was conducted at AMS, which is a years 11 to 12 small independent music-focused school located in the CBD of an Australian capital city. The school describes itself as a blending of school and community youth setting, and many of its 90 students have previously disengaged with mainstream, or what they call normal schooling, and suffer from mental illness, social exclusion, substance abuse, or experience trauma. AMS, for many, is their last chance to complete their school education. Despite being a fee-paying school, approximately 25% of the student body is on scholarship. It should also be noted that non-government schools in Australia also receive money from the government. So it's not entirely subsidised by parents. Given student backgrounds, it's also desirable that staff have experience in social work and trauma-informed practice. The school proudly defies the rigid structures of traditional schooling, and there are no bells, no uniforms, and no homework. Where can I sign up? Classes start at 10 a.m. and go to 4 p.m, and students don't have to be on campus when they don't have class. AMS uses music as the hook to re-engage adolescents in their high school education. Despite being a music and arts-focused school, it's non-selective and accepts all students who wish to attend. Every subject at the school approaches its curriculum through a music industry lens. For example, students in maths will complete a tour budget, and in English, students will write a position paper on digital streaming and copyright. The school builds explicit connections with the music industry and the local music scene. Students are encouraged to take advantage of an on-site professional recording studio and numerous dedicated spaces to assist in music generation and creativity. And my goodness, what an exciting place to be. So AMS has a small teaching staff. It's a small school, and the principal also teaches and is supported by the equivalent of approximately 5 professional staff, FTE. The school provides a number of pathways for students to complete their education, including ATAR and VET. There's what I have categorised as 3 levels of study from VET to ATAR offerings. In addition to English and maths, only an arts-focused curriculum is offered. There are no subjects for students to complete in HPE, languages, sciences, or technologies. And people are obviously aware of this when they sign up. Not only can students choose multiple arts subjects, but also multiple music subjects. For example, students can study a certificate in music, level 2 music, and level 3 music and music extension all at once. So you could potentially be doing 4 subjects of music across your school week. That's pretty amazing, I think. And students are not required to have external instrumental music lessons for any of their subjects. And if you're familiar with how music is offered with various jurisdictions around the country, that's quite significant that students are not required to take music as an external subject. So data for this project was generated using focus groups and 30-minute 2-phase share and tell interviews with Year 11 and Year 12 students at Australian Music School. The data presented in this presentation are student responses to the interview focus question, what do you enjoy about learning music in this program? The question was provided in advance for students to consider, and they were asked to bring a music example to the interview, preferably their own original music if they had it. In the first phase of the share and tell task, students were presented with an A4 page with the question and provided approximately 5 to 10 minutes to draw their response. Students were then asked to interpret their drawing for the researcher and asked follow-up questions such as, why is this important to you? Can you provide an example of this? In the second phase, students were then asked to provide a musical example. We first listened to the example and discussed its meaning and relevancy to their drawings. Some students used their own phone, an online streaming service, or voice memos to share their music, while I used my phone for those who did not have their phone on them at the time. In some cases, students featured their Spotify channel and their original music. This approach privileged the stories and perspectives of young people, and visual data collection methods have been implemented widely in early childhood studies. However, they're only emerging in recent years of adolescence, and this is the first study that I know of to implement a 2-phase share and tell task that combines drawing and music, particularly original songs created by adolescent musicians. And so what I will be sharing with you today are the narrative inquiry approach that I've taken to this particular study. I'll first share some narrative vignettes and then provide an analysis of the narratives. Let's look at the feature students. And ethical clearance to conduct research was granted by Edith Cowan University, and I recruited students by visiting the school in person and presenting the study to several music classes. Students were invited to take a participant information letter home and discuss the project with their family, and consent forms were collected by school administration staff and forwarded to me. 9 students aged between 16 and 18 years participated in the research. All young people and their parents provided consent to complete interviews and share their artistic output. In my presentation today, I tried to find a really careful balance between de-identifying participants using pseudonyms, but also acknowledging and attributing these young people using their artist names. And this is really important because it recognises that these young people are artists in their own right and are also creating and releasing original artistic work to the world. So you'll see that today. There's pseudonyms and artist names interweaving throughout my work here. So let's go on to the narrative vignettes. But I thought I'd first start as well with in their own words, what the students say about the school, how they describe the school. Let's give you a moment to have a read of these words on screen. I have to say that these young people were really passionate about coming forth with their appreciation for the school and the staff involved as well, and the transformative experience that it's had on their lives, for many as their last chance. So let's start with some narratives here. So this is Mia. So referring to her drawing, Mia says, "It's kind of abstract, but I did like a comparison to where I feel I would have been if I stayed at my old school, which is on the left, and where I am at Australian Music School on the right. It's the thing I enjoy most about learning music here in this environment. It's the possibilities, the opportunities I'm getting, and how I'm ready for the world." Referring to the colours beyond the green on the right, Mia says, "This is the outside world, and I'm ready for it. I've got all these ideas and all this stuff I've learned here, and I'm ready to go down that path." Then this one on the left, "I'm stuck on this little path, and my feet are stuck. You've passed a point where you should have moved on. There's all this confusion, and I don't know what I want from this. But this one on the right, I know where I'm going." What an incredible drawing. Emerging from the narratives of these students is the need to come to this school. Hunter says that he came to AMS because I met a couple of people and they really liked it here and they seemed really cool. My mental health wasn't the greatest at my old school and I was looking to just leave. And then my mum found this place. We sussed it out a little bit and just went, you know what? Let's just have a look. That day when I went, I basically sat and was like, I really have to come here. I can't stay where I'm at the moment. The whole atmosphere where it's based around music just really appealed to me. Hunter says that he enjoys the school being exciting, challenging, and learning new things. He says, so basically learning music can be really fun. If you're learning anything new, whether it be new songs or new exercises, it can build your skill, and that's what it's like, what I like about it. Whether you do musical production, it's exciting. What can come after learning? It's pretty good. I think just generally, it's what I really want to do, and I can't really imagine myself doing anything else. Referring to her drawing, Emily says it's basically supposed to be pathways, different pathways. What I enjoy about music is that music is not just one thing. It's a really massive thing that can be looked at from so many different perspectives. And it's like each pathway is a different way you can go when you're doing music or learning about it. Remember, these students learn about music in every subject they take. Music is not one thing. There's so much about it, and you probably couldn't even learn every single thing about music. One of the pathways you could be learning theory, and a different pathway is learning sound, and behind the equipment and what makes backstage happen. Another thing could be performing jazz or performing opera. There's just so many different ways that people look at music, and I just love that. Myself, I can't help think that these musical pathways also refer to the musical identities I see at this school. And I ask Emily, why is this important to her? She says, I just think that it's really important to me because I just love seeing what people like about music. And it kind of like makes them up as a person a little bit. And just learning different types of music is really important to me because I don't want to be held down to one thing. I like to be free and wandering through different genres and things. I love to learn, and I don't want to just close my mind off to anything. and only learning about one thing for the rest of my life. I would like to learn more and just expand my tastes. As the researcher, what I find really interesting in what Emily says is that these are students who typically in their previous schools would have been cast aside as not interested in learning. Music is what has switched them on to learning. Unlike most of the other students, Emily didn't study music at her previous school. She says, I wasn't as passionate about music at my old school, and then I came here and I just saw how passionate everyone was in music, the teachers and the students. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I saw how talented they all were. I would see everyone doing it and I would be really happy for them. And so I was like, I should do stuff like that. And so it kind of brought it out of me. I was like, I need to do music, or not even just music, a lot of different creative things. Coming here brought out my creativity. Aurora describes her drawing. She says, I wanted to have as many colours as possible to make it look lively, because that's the way I see performance. The way I see the live aspect of the music industry in touring. I feel like when I perform, I feel like I'm on drugs, but it's even better than drugs. It's the most thrilling thing. It's just insane. It's like I'm on so many things at once, but I'm not. I suggest myself as the researcher to Aurora that this feeling is a state of flow or being in the zone. She replies, yeah, most definitely. I think one of the reasons that I've been able to do what I've done so far is because of being in the zone, which I struggled with a lot in other things. Like I genuinely can't sit down and do something that I don't like. Some people will call me lazy for that, but genuinely, my mindset, I can't do that. Even for math sometimes, I can't do an assignment and I procrastinate and it's due the next day. And I'm like, no, I still can't do it because I just can't, because I don't like it. I have to find a way to like it. But with music, I just like everything about it, so I want to do it. As Aurora is describing this to me, I can't help think of her maths subjects where music is centered in the work that is going on. And I see these students being switched onto subjects perhaps they were previously disengaged in. Aurora shares one of her released songs called Sprout. It's under her artist name, Bizarris, which today has nearly 300,000 listens on Spotify. Yes, I said 300,000. She says, that was a song that I submitted for the Triple J Unearthed competition, which is what gave me the initial exposure. But the song is about being in a relationship with someone that is not mentally well, and then you're kind of having to parent them in a way, and then losing yourself in the process of that. In this song, Aurora is singing and playing all of the parts, except for the drums, which are programmed by MIDI. Let's have a listen to Sprout.
The same these days. Try on a different face to trick you into thinking I might stay. And everyone knows you, but not well enough to work it out. All of your issues seem to sprout out to the surface from the ground. Afterwards, I'll spare a kiss for you. Say you're never in the wrong when we both know that's far from the truth. things I already know. And it's not I don't love you so, but I can tell that we are gonna grow now. And you tell me I'm selfish, 'cause I'm telling you things you don't wanna hear. And I just wanna help things, but you'd rather let this all just disappear. And I'll replace your therapist afterwards. I'll spare a kiss for you. Say you're never in the wrong when we both know that's far from the truth. Maybe I'll die little, maybe I'll die little. Maybe I'll cry little, maybe I'll cry little. Maybe I'll die little, maybe I'll die little. Maybe I'll cry little, maybe I'll cry little.
You can imagine me as the researcher sitting there, blown off my seat, listening to this humble young person take out their phone and their Spotify channel and sharing their enormously successful creation. Ellie speaks to her drawing, which provides a multifaceted view of what she enjoys about learning in this program. It's not a singular thing. She's really quite reflective and aware of the multiple ways that she benefits from learning music at this school. She first starts talking about Logic, which is, for those who aren't familiar, a digital audio workstation or DAW. And she describes how coming to this school has actually set her up to record, produce, and release her own music. She uses music as her way to communicate with the world. She also talks about how she really enjoys learning from her peers and the relationships that grow out of music. Often these young people refer to music as a person, and the relationship that they have with that is quite intimate. They rely, they lean on, they use music to support them in their learning, not only just in the discipline of music, but through all of their subjects. Ellie also speaks to the business skills she's developing that are going to set her up for after school. These people, many of them, are serious about pursuing music careers. And as you saw before in the subject offering, business is one of the subjects that many of the students take. Their business subject is entirely focused on music industry skills, learning how to deal with agents, managers, record labels, how to create budgets, tours, book venues, work with others. These are the employability skills that our musicians of the future need, and they're already getting it in school. They're not even having to go to university, they're getting it in school. But what strikes me is what students at other schools are not getting. Are they getting employability skills that they will need for successful music careers, sustainable music careers beyond school? Ellie also speaks to songwriting being a significant component of this program, of this school. And it's teaching her skills to advance her songwriting. Ellie was already writing songs well before she came to Australian Music School. However, this school has enabled her to take it to a whole new level. The school actually has songwriting breakout rooms and recording studios that students are welcome to use at any time. They might have, in the middle of an English class, an idea for a song, and they have permission to get up and leave and go record that and document that idea for later use. The last drawing here is about performing and growing as a performer and working to overcome potential nerves that might be there and developing into a flourishing artist. I ask Ellie if she can provide an example of all of these different things that she's spoken about. And she says, yeah, I can share with you a piece called Ghost. It's released under her artist name, L-I-E, Lie. And this particular song has actually already received commercial success. It's being used as background music in a TV show. And it's actually about ghosting in messengers. If you're not familiar with that, you might have to do a little bit of a Google search. But it's essentially when someone messages you or you're messaging someone, I should say, and they're not replying. They might have seen the message, and you know how you can get the seen notification, but they're still not replying. They're ghosting you. And so that's what this particular song is about. Let's have a listen to Ghost by Lie.
I feel the distance between us, and I don't know what to do, 'cause I know that it's never you that caused it. You could come on closer, but I step back for right over, scared that you will see right through me and know it. And I won't lie, I do not, I'm not fine. And I won't lie, your messages won't get a reply. I'ma go.
Again, another stellar release by a young person. And I'm deliberately playing the whole song because I think it's worthy and these young people deserve the airtime. Moving on to Heidi. Heidi describes how the school's in-house TV studio, SKTV, helped her find her musical identity and passion. So she explains that she drew Cloudland, and that's what they've called the studio. We record a lot of music and music videos up there for SKTV. That's why I like learning about it, learning how to mix the music and record the music. She says in her drawing, there are two people, one playing the guitar and one just singing. The colours are the lights that we normally use. It's a red and a blue. The square is a recording booth where we plug it all into a laptop and it records everything. Heidi says, I didn't really get these opportunities at my old school to learn how to record music. We got to learn how to write, but that was about it. I always wanted to do something other than performing, and finding this was a big thing that I wanted to do. I was given an opportunity to just sit on an SKTV recording, just to sit and watch in the background. After that, every single time they did it, I wanted to be part of it, and I couldn't not be part of it. I got involved in setting up the studio space and figuring out and learning how it all connected and worked together in recording and the mixing. It's something that once I was taught, I kind of fell in love with it. I had to do it because it just felt right. I asked Heidi if she could share something that she's been involved in, and she says, I've got a few SKTVs that I've been a part of that have my name in the credits. What surprises me is that this school is really good at acknowledging not only the performing artists, but the entire team behind them. Heidi says, it's so exciting. I love it so much. It's kind of just a show of recognition that it's not just the person that you see in the video, it's everyone that's behind the video as well that works super hard on it. Heidi says her favourite role is being in the room because you get to know the artist a lot better and you also get to help out. If they feel like something's wrong, you can fix it. Then if the sound crew feels like something's wrong, you can fix it as well. Pointing to her phone, she says, this is the one. It's with one of the students here who's also an artist. Her name is Lai. I was just part of the audio for it. I set up the microphone and helped set up the direct input for the guitar and headphones. And here's an acoustic rendition of the version that Heidi is speaking about.
Jolie, song 1, take 2.
I feel the distance between us and I don't know what to do, 'cause I know that it's never you that caused it. You could come on closer, but I'd step back for right over, scared that you will see right through me and know it. And I won't lie tonight, I'm not fine. And I won't lie, your messages won't get a reply. I'ma go I'ma go, you will never know it. I'm sorry that I left like this, but I was thinking of you too. I know that it's best for you if I leave. I couldn't express my thoughts and I am thinking that's the cause for why I disappeared from your movie. And I won't lie tonight, I'm not fine. And I won't lie, your messages won't get a reply. I'ma go I'ma go, you will never know it. I'ma go, I'ma go, you will never know it.
The last narrative that I wish to share with you today is from a young man called Rowan. And Rowan says, this is a lot of people having ideas about one thing, but is demonstrated by the symbolism of the colored lines around them. They're all different ideas and they're all different ways of thinking. This is a person recording, and these are people watching the recording happen, and these are their different ideas. I think it's very interesting how we all have different ideas about things, but some that help and some that don't, and some about a very similar thing or same. That's what I like about learning here, is that everyone's really offering what they have to teach. Rowan provides an example from a group of hip-hop artists he works with called the Limelight Collective. This is a group of hip-hop artists that he works with outside the school, but actually the school allows him to bring this work into what he does on a daily basis as part of his work. He says, I was performing my verse and it was good lyrics, but I was like, it's not really hitting. And all these people had ideas on how to do it on the couch. Ideas. And I tried some of them, and some of them I didn't even try because I'm like, I'm not doing that. And what I think it's interesting, how all of them might have had a different outcome and butterfly effect. But then when I ended up doing it differently, I did it in a weirder voice, and that is what it is now in the song. And it worked out a lot better. And it's iconic for that song to have that. Let's have a listen to an excerpt from Good Morning by the Limelight Collective and featuring Rowan's artist name, Noise.
And this is the verse I was talking about.
Okay.
I'm going to skip a bit into
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
The best bitch on the hook since fishes and nets. Best wishes to the wedded when they get heated. Cause when I see him, I'm conceited and defeated like my first fleet. Captain Cook got OD weeks ago. And I slipped him a note through the ship and so. And now all my league beats on the speakerphone. And they bumping ODs like I slipped on my homes. Pushing shove pants with my old black Vans. And I could've sworn back then felt like an accident. Better call the ambulance, cause my boy just tried half cab backspin just to get hot top after hot pot and hot pot. Feeling burning, better brace for the sermon. I'm permanently in it affirmative, and I think I just lost my shit to Herman's.
I should mention as well and give a shout out that this is an unreleased work or soon to be released work and features 7 young hip hop artists coming together. And that's a recording of a recording that Rowan was sharing with me during the interview. So let's now move on to the discussion and return to the question, what are the characteristics of this program that nurture and facilitate adolescent musical flourishing? How does this school switch previously disengaged young people back on to their learning? So clearly, first and foremost, music is front and center. It is the hook that brought people to this school, and it's what initially is getting them engaged back in their school education. As many of them said, it's their last chance to complete school, and quite a few students thought that without this school, there was no way for them to complete their education. What's also really interesting is that it is a narrow curriculum offering. It's quite arts focused, and there's multiple music and arts offering. And we think about traditional mainstream or normal schooling, as you might call it. Often there is a very great spread. There's great choice. There's great diversity in what students can choose. And this school is taking a complete opposite approach in that regard. It also has a whole suite of learning areas that are not available for students to choose. And they're all happy with that as well. A big feature of this school is music as a cross-curricular priority. Every subject offers a music lens to its curriculum. The facilities and resources that young people are presented with provide space for music creativity and artistry to take place, and also serve as opportunities, not just with creating space, but also connecting students to industry and venues in the local community. And the culture, the musical and artistic culture that is at the centre of this school is noteworthy, where students that were previously the weird kids, the weird muso kids, as one person, as Rowan previously mentioned, are now actually the normal kids in this school. A significant aspect of this school are the musical identities, which are actively nurtured. It's inclusive. Everyone is welcome at this school. In fact, it's celebrated. Students are also given a great deal of agency. They can choose their level of involvement. And underpinning this is a great sense of trust. Students are given an enormous amount of trust, which maybe some of our mainstream and normal schools could learn about. The other thing which is, I think, important to acknowledge is the diverse and multiple identities that students are empowered to enact. This is the various roles, such as performers, creators, producers, and tech crew. A significant component was the whole team that came together to create music, but also then the genres as well, and all the different ways that music was privileged. Again, thinking of some other of our music specialised schools, which often centre in a particular genre approach, this school welcomed everything, although probably would be acknowledged predominantly a contemporary approach. Another centrepiece of this school was the connection. And music was used as a process and a resource in which relationships and bonds were created and maintained between students. This was really, I think, helped by a small community, and in particular by a bunch of people gathering together who were like-minded. The students spoke actively about how they were able to connect with nearly everybody on campus because of their common interest in music. Also, this school actively empowered and encouraged students to bring their outside interests in music into the school classroom. And we saw this through Rowan's example. There also was a really strong connection to industry. And one powerful example of this is that their semester showcase is actually held in a local music venue. And you saw one of those images early on. Another significant aspect of this school is the way that it disrupts traditional school structures. No bell times, no uniforms, no homework. Teachers are referred to on their first name basis, and students are free to leave campus during lunch and spares. This flexibility was seen as really important by students. Another feature of this school was meeting students where they are. This was done through multiple music and arts pathways, from vet courses to ATAR and in between, to also trade and employment pathways. Teachers themselves brought with them authentic and genuine music industry experience, and often a youth services background. A key component that students spoke of is the hands-on learning that they were able to experience at this school, and was acknowledged that students in this school were there because the previous school system that they were a part of failed them. This schooling system allowed them to learn in ways that they could thrive. So, in conclusion, I think we've seen from these stories and drawings and shared music of young people that music is a powerful, motivating resource to engage students who may have been previously disengaged in their education. It also raises some significant questions around rethinking schooling. And does one size really fit all? And if not, what are all the different sizes that we need? It's also a school that really showcases there is a place for all learners. And perhaps if a student isn't flourishing in one context, there might be another context for them. And a music-focused context can really make a difference. There's also questions raised around arts-infused pedagogies and initial teacher education. And we know that initial teacher education, while has a great deal of regulation around it, actually doesn't mandate at all arts education be a compulsory component for teachers. And I think that is absolutely a missed opportunity for our education sector. So for me, my final thought is that what astounds me about this school is that a music-focused program where music is taught as a cross-curricular priority, where all young people, through a non-selective entry process, are given an opportunity to live out their own musical identities of their choosing, is a really powerful way to help young people engage in their education and complete their schooling and able to thrive and flourish into adulthood. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and I look forward to discussion and questions.
Jason, thank you so much. That was really, really fascinating. It really just has exploded my mind into what high school could actually be. Like, if you think about if children were given the choice to pursue their passions and you had equivalent schools that were like, whether it was arts or whether it was science, and they're, I don't know, just all that kind of concentration of teacher expertise and all that flexibility and student-centered learning, like, I don't know, is fascinating. I'm sure like people in the meeting have questions, so please stick your hands up. But while people are gathering their thoughts or putting them into the chat, I had a few things that came up that I would love to ask you about. Let me decide. So yeah, I was curious about the teaching team, and what were they, did they come from high school teaching backgrounds, or did they come from predominantly music professional backgrounds with an interest in teaching young people, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, good question. So they're all qualified teachers, but they generally all had a music industry background, and many often at some part of their own career journey had gone into a youth services role as well, helping young people in terms of that social work. So I guess it was really a number of things they brought to their tool belt as teachers. It wasn't a traditional, I go to university, I do my initial teacher education, and then I go become a teacher. They sort of had a number of careers, in a way you might say, and that actually was heavily valued and part of the success of the school.
I think so, you know, I think having that, yeah, that broader professional expertise would just give them a whole bunch of insights that I, as an average, you know, high school teacher in the past would just not have had around music. Brendan, you made some great comments in the chat. I love your comment about hard work, environment, and support along with talent. But what is your question?
Hi, Jason and everybody. It's great to see you again, mate. I don't think I've seen you in like 20 years or something, not since high school days. But thanks for sharing the Australian Music School. I've never heard of it, but it sounds absolutely amazing. My question is, are the students actively learning how to play their instruments as well, or are they purely creating music and just kind of learning organically through that process?
Good question, and it's great to see you, Brendan. And I guess for transparency, Brendan and I did go to high school together a long time ago. I think there's about 5 years between us, and I remember us in concert band. I think Brendan was the principal clarinetist at one point, and I was the saxophonist. I know Brendan's doing amazing work down in Victoria. But to answer your question, Brendan, it's interesting that I think at this school, you'd find there's a balanced approach or a range of learning going on from informal learning all the way to formal learning. And it's occurring in so many contexts. There's so many opportunities for these students to learn music. It's just happening all over the place and in so many different ways. So in addition to the formal music learning that's going on in their music classes, there's so much informal music learning going on from peers at lunchtimes, after school. Students can book these spaces and get together, and they're all helping each other out. As you saw from Rowan's story, the ideas is what he really loves from his peers and teachers. And it's not just ideas as in musical ideas, thoughts about music. It's also thoughts in music and doing music. And so that's really important. So yes, it's a bit of everything. There's so much music going on at the school that the kids are learning in so many different ways.
Can I ask another one, Jason? Was it Emily that had no musical background? One of the participants had no musical background. So how on earth did she catch up with her peers? Like, how would you enter into a program like this if you've not had any musical experience before?
I think it shows that this school is welcoming of all students where they are.
Mm.
And it enables students to enter, and this is where you are, this is your journey, and then you start from there and you progress. And so that's different to other typical music schools, where it's usually that benchmark that you have to meet in order to even get in. Well, that's not the case at all in this context. And so regardless of how much experience you have or not have, you're welcome to come. But what I find really interesting about Emily's case and a few others is that while music may not have been a significant part of their background in terms of skill development, it's the thing that actually, again, switches them on to schooling and completing their education. And then through that, they've discovered a passion for music that may not lead to a career, but it's going to lead to music being with them and part of their life for the rest of their adulthood, most likely. So I think that's really quite fascinating that even this school doesn't position music as a career in itself. It's a way of also living a healthy life.
Yeah. Lee's saying in the chat, so evident this school met students where they were at, powerful. Yeah, definitely. And Aruna asking, does anyone know if there's another such school in Australia? If so, where? Do you know the answer?
Good question. I mean, if anyone knows of one, I'd love to know it. I think this particular school is unique in its offering, in its particular context. We certainly have many music specialist schools across the country, but they are typically all audition-based, whereas this one is non-selective, as I mentioned.
Which is kind of ideologically so different, because coming from an acting background and thinking about like NIDA and things like that, and that kind of pressure for technical excellence and competitiveness that your classic, single arts focused institution would foster is completely debunked in the school that you're looking at. It's really great.
That's right. And it's interesting that even though it's a music focused school, obviously the arts are a significant feature, and the students often don't refer to themselves as musicians. They actually will refer to themselves as creatives. And I think that's a really interesting label in itself.
Yeah. Cool. Creative, so fitting, Catherine. It would seem these students are developing very strong, autonomous, independent learning skills. Yeah, absolutely. Through the culture of learning from and exploring ideas with each other in informal settings. You were talking about that, the power of the informality and the environment being so, like teachers by first names, and you can leave off campus, that's up to you. And just that trust and empowerment of the young people. Yeah. Can you speak?
I think that the flipping of the power dynamic as well is a key feature of this school. Often in the mainstream school, and I was a teacher in the mainstream schools for 15 years, often there is the teacher versus student. And it may not be explicitly said as such, but there is that power dynamic really created. And of course, there is those relationships of teacher and student, but they're much closer to being leveled in this context. And the students spoke about their teachers as being really important mentors as well.
Yeah, I'll bet. Do you think that term, there's a few comments about the use of the word creatives, and it just reminds me of social media, and I don't know why. But do you think like that social mediaification, like the idea of being a creative and being a content creator, has kind of expanded our notion of who we are beyond just as you say, like a musician or an actor, or I don't know, it's some kind of
Absolutely. Some of these young people as well spoke about being on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of Aurora right now, who spoke about the way that she was releasing her music to the world and getting attention was through TikTok. And she said that was the key to that particular piece exploding and just getting a real, I guess, traction is through TikTok releases.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's right that the way that these young people at least, are seeing their relationship with music, the arts, creativity is not necessarily as siloed as it may have been in the past. And I think that's wonderful. And that's the world that we live in 2024.
When you think about like the implications for what you observed at this location for, quote unquote average, if that even exists, but like an average high school, and they just feel like there's so many barriers to extracting the value of this model and trying to transfer it. But am I being pessimistic, do you think? Do you feel like there is a way to capitalize on these benefits in a more in the model that has become the cookie cutter for most of us out there for education?
I think so. I think what this program shows for me is that there's a place for everyone to have an education. And for some students, the arts are a really important and powerful way that they need to finish school. And we can absolutely replicate that. And this is context dependent as well. This is a particular group of students. And so we should have lots of similar or inspired models of this school across the country and across the world. We really should, because our young people need it. If we look at the statistics around young people in terms of their mental health and disengagement, clearly there is actually a need for these kind of schools. And why not? If it works, let's do it.
Yeah. A few more comments here. Lee is asking, when it comes to the power dynamics being broken down, how much did you discuss trust? How was it established, or did you come to an understanding? Was it kind of explicit, implicit, organic, developed over time? Lee, do you mean trust in regards of students being in charge of their own time and their own learning? That kind of element of trust, Lee, I got that right?
Yeah. Jason was just mentioning just the significance of trust in the space. And I can imagine when you're being so open to share.
The vulnerability of honesty. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess I'm being selfish here because I'm studying trust at the moment as well, like looking at it with my own participants. So
Great.
I'm just trying to benefit and see where you went well, because it can be such a complex thing.
Absolutely. So I think there are two parts to this question, if I've heard correctly. The first is how did I build trust with participants through the data collection process, and then the trust of the students and teachers, the relationship between them. In regards to the first part, that was really important. It's something I'm very mindful of, is establishing trust with my participants. And I think the really first thing that I had to do was go on and introduce myself to these people. I went to the school on multiple visits and spoke to the class or different classes and explained the project. They have a very small background of me, so they could see I was a real person. I was just like someone they were used to in terms of teaching and everything else, that I wasn't this strange researcher or scientist that was going to come and probe them and extract knowledge. It was really about working with the students as well. And even in other contexts, I've actually been part of sessions and participated with young people. The other thing as well, as part of this process, is that this didn't all happen in one visit. This was data collected over a whole number of visits, about 3 or 4 different visits and interviews. I actually conducted focus group interviews across 3 sessions and 3 individual interviews across 3 different sessions. So again, the relationship was established across time over nearly a whole 6 months. And that was a really important part of the data collection process and working with these young people, and then getting a sense of us knowing each other, and then also them trusting me and also them sharing me. But I'm also very mindful that, yes, absolutely working alongside as well. So working with alongside participants. And I think what's really important is that I've tried to be really respectful as well of the stories and the artistic output of students, even in this presentation, trying to find that balance between de-identification and also acknowledging their artist name. So you can see throughout the project, there's a whole lot of trust embedded in the relationship between researcher and participant. In regards to the student-teacher relationship and that trust there, I think similarly in that as we do good teaching in schools, it's about getting to know your students. And I'm a big believer, and my research has found this as well, and you can read about it in my published book, that, that student-teacher relationships and fostering student-student relationships are really at the core of creating a culture of learning in your classroom and in your school environment, and then even extends degree. So for me, relationships are paramount to all of this work. So a lot of time on relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And there's something about the arts that does that so well. I don't know what it is. I think it's that vulnerable sharing your work is so vulnerable. Like there's something,
right.
Is that it? I don't know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that's our time with lovely, wise, and talented Dr. Jason Goopy. Thank you so much for sharing this research. It's been really, really interesting evening listening to your findings and hearing about these amazing, hardworking, talented young people. Yeah, thank you.
I should just mention as well, as Brendan was saying, that that whole discussion between talent and skills development, these people worked really and are working really, really hard. This is not something that they just woke up with one day. It's a result of a lot of hard work. And so just to conclude, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It means so much you being here. And thank you as well to everyone I know who will be watching the recording.